Hi, this is Deanna Fulcher, the Gut Healing RN with Eating to Heal. Today I'm going to show you how to make my Kefir sourdough bread, and I'm going to try to show you as much of the process as I can because I have one in the oven, I have one ready to bake, and I'm going to mix another one up. So this is the one that's ready to bake, and I have it in a bowl in a large Ziploc bag. And that's how it rises for 24 hours to ferment. So here's kind of what it looks like. And you'll get to see the side by side with this is after it's risen, and then I'm going to go ahead and mix up a new batch while we wait for the other one to finish cooking. Okay, so let me get the camera down in this work area. Sorry, my phone's ringing. I'm not answering it. Okay, so the ingredients are very simple. It's just kefir, water, and salt. So I start with 2 cups of milk kefir. You can see it's nice and bubbly because the kefir fermentation process uses bacteria and yeast, which is the regular sourdough is just made with yeast, so this actually helps break down the gluten even better. I use 1 teaspoon of salt, and you can either use sea salt or pink Himalayan salt, and I'll use the Himalayan salt this time. So 1 teaspoon. And the flour can vary a little bit just depending on the absorbency of the flour. And then I'm going to start with 3 cups of flour, which I've already pre-measured. So I'm just going to go ahead and get that all in there. Stir it up. You want this dough to be kind of firm, but not as firm as regular bread. And it's quite forgiving as far as the consistency, so even if it's kind of gooey, it usually comes out fine. You might have a little bit different consistency, but I haven't had any yet that's not edible. Sometimes it's just a little bit different consistency. So the reason why this bread is good for people who have issues with gluten is because the fermentation process breaks down the gluten into smaller molecules before it ever hits your body, so that your body doesn't have to work to do that digestion process. And if you're in a state of leaky gut at all, then your digestion is probably compromised, and it can give you issues with processing gluten in your body. So I made this little diagram. I'll just kind of go over it. A monosaccharide is a single molecule which is found in fructose, glucose, and galactose. A disaccharide is a double molecule, mostly found in lactose and sucrose, which is table sugar. If the milk is a fermented product like kefir and cheeses and yogurt, then the lactose gets broken down into galactose. Then polysaccharides are hard to digest because they're long molecules. They can even be hundreds of molecules long. The carbohydrate is maltose. These long polysaccharides are found in wheat and other grains and legumes and starchy vegetables. So along with the long carbohydrate that you have to break down, you also have to break down the gluten protein. And the kefir actually works on breaking both of those down in the fermentation process, and so that's why this bread is very easy to digest. So I need just a little bit more flour. because it looks good on top, but it's a little bit gooey underneath. So I'm just going to put in maybe like another 1/4 cup of flour. I'm trying to work that in. And that's all there is to it as far as mixing up this bread. And it doesn't even have to be this stiff. It can be a little bit more runny, more gooey. And you don't even have to do a whole lot of mixing, so that's about all I'm going to do. I'm just going to scrape this off of my hands a little bit. All you have to do. Okay, and then you go ahead and place the bowl into a bag. And I don't seal it, I just kind of fold it down and to keep the fruit flies out. It'll still probably, excuse me, get a little bit of air in there, but it's mainly just so it doesn't dry out. So then you just leave this on your counter to ferment for about 24 hours. And when you get done, this should be your product. So before and after. Okay, and then this is ready to go in the oven. And like I said, I have a loaf in there now, which is almost done. Then I have to switch the temperature again. So I just grease the pan a little bit with some coconut oil. This stoneware pan works really, really well. I also have a stone Pampered Chef pan that works well. I have a Pyrex, Pyrex bread pan, and this actually has a glass lid, so it works to cook it, but it sticks pretty bad in here. So I've kind of moved away from using that. So again, this is just a little coconut oil to grease the pan with. And then this has just been sitting, so no kneading, just rising for 24 hours straight from the mix there. And then what you do is just scoop it gently because you don't want to knock all the air bubbles out of it. But it's more gooey now than when it went in, so that's why you don't want it to be too gooey to begin with, because it'll be pretty sloppy coming out. Anyway, try to just get as much of it off the edges and everything as you can, and just scoop it out and put it right in there. And it's pretty sticky to my hands. It comes off pretty good though. And then you're just gonna kind of shape it a little bit so you don't have a lot of jagged edges sticking out. Okay, I'm gonna wash my hand again. Okay, then the only other thing you have to do is try to slice it. And if it's too gooey, sometimes it won't slice very well. And for the oblongs, for the round one that I have in, I like to do a cross cut. And for the oblong ones, I like to do kind of some diagonal slashes. And I usually do 3. And you can go fairly deep on those too. And hopefully that'll give a little separation there. Okay, then just put the lid on and stick it in. But since I have that one in there, I need to reheat the oven back up to 500. So right now the oven's at 350. And let me see if this one's done. Okay, it actually could use a little bit more time, so I'm gonna go ahead and put it back in after the oven raises up to 500. You don't want it cooking the whole time on 500 or it will burn. But to get this one in, let's move it up. So 500, start. And I guess I'll go ahead and put the lid back on so that it doesn't burn, but I think it needs to cook for about probably 10 more minutes. And you don't want to be opening your oven a lot either, so to lose the heat. So the other thing that you want to do is put a pan, or you can use like a brownie pan, or just something that'll work in the that'll fit between the two lower shelves. So I have the one shelf not on the middle rack, but the closer to the bottom, and then I have a bottom rack that I put this on. So I need to add some more water to that. Slide it back in, and this just gives the steam effect, and it helps the bread to have a really quick rise. Okay, so we'll let that get back up to 500. And let me see what else I need to show you. Okay, that's pretty much it. Let me get a piece of bread out. This is from a previous loaf, and this loaf I think was 50-50, like half wheat, half white, and then I also put some flax seeds in it. So that's kind of the texture you're going to get. You're not going to get huge sourdough bubbles, because a lot of times traditional sourdough will have really big holes, and that's kind of a bragging point for a lot of people. Look at all the holes I got in my bread. But this has a decent amount, but then you're not going to lose all your butter and jam and everything through the holes. It works well for all kinds of things. It's quite a firm bread. So it's not soft Wonder Bread by any means. It's very sturdy. And it also doesn't mold very fast at all. Like, this is probably 2 or 3 weeks old, and it's just been sitting in the fridge. I had some in a bag for a week, and it got a tiny bit of mold on it. Not even refrigerated. That's it. So that works really well. Okay, I'm not quite up to 500, but I'm going to go ahead and put this in. Oh, this is another little piece that I just did, adding more flour to this one. And I'm going to actually try to roll it out and make a tortilla out of it. So that's what I'll use this for. I did a little piece and made a little fry bread out of it. But this one I want to put a little more tortilla on. Oh, that's another thing I needed to tell you. So all the flour that you have in your loaf, you want it all in right at the beginning, because the fermentation process does take about 20 to 24 hours. This loaf that I just did has been about 20 hours. And you don't want to add more flour at the end, because if you add flour right before baking, that flour is not going to get a chance to get fermented. So if you do have a problem with gluten toleration, then that's not going to help, because that flour that you add at the end won't be fermented. So that's why you don't add any flour at the end. So, okay, so this is almost ready. We're up to about 420. So I'm going to go ahead and stick this in, and we'll finish up here. And I'll wait in about 10 more minutes. I'll take that. So I'm going to set this timer for 10 to take the other loaf out. Whoops. And then this one I'll set for 20 to take the second loaf out. Okay, if you have any questions, you can let me know. I can be reached. I actually do consultations for gut healing. I teach the GAPS protocol. I'm a certified GAPS practitioner and I'm a registered nurse. And I can be reached through the comments if you have any questions. Okay, thank you.